You'll just have to use your imagination.
Snap out of it!
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. And I feel like recently there's a lot of kind of fake objects, fake food, craft kind of stuff going on. So we have different kinds of soap that looks like food, different candles that look like food, including this baked bean one, which I'm honestly thinking about buying because it's amazing. And then also the people who make cake that looks like different objects and different foods and stuff. And I think it's quite a cool idea, and it got me thinking, I want to give it a go. I want to try something. So today I thought I would try and make some fake cereal using resin, which I think will be quite challenging actually. I think soap, candles, and cake is a lot easier to turn something into something that it isn't, as opposed to resin. But I'm going to give it my best shot. Okay, so for my first little design, I bought this white decorative bowl, which I think looks absolutely gorgeous. And because resin's quite expensive, and I didn't want to use an absolute ton of resin filling up this empty bowl, I started off by using some aqua cast, just to fill up some of that negative space, and then just pop that to one side to let it dry. The next day, I decided to add some white epoxy resin on top of this aqua cast, just to seal everything in, and then put that to one side to set, whilst the cereal bowl was doing its thing. I thought this was the perfect time to start working on the cereal, and I just bought this tiny little donut mold online, which I think will give kind of like a Cheerio, Fruit Loops kind of cereal shape. And the first type of cereal I wanted to make was kind of like a Fruit Loopy, very sugary, colourful kind of unhealthy cereal. So I just added some blue epoxy resin into this mold. After that I decided to go for a purple one. Next up was orange, and then green, and finally a red epoxy resin. And once that was all done, I just put them to one side to set. In this video, you'll notice there's a lot of waiting around for things to set. It took a long time to make all this stuff. The next day, it was just time to take them out of the mold. And this is what they're looking like. And I think they look pretty cool. Not necessarily like cereal, but kind of like a cartoony Fruit Loop cereal. And I'm kind of into it. It's not exactly what I wanted, but I think I can work with this.
Are you lying to me?
So to accompany this bowl, I thought I would use this white and blue stripy spoon, because I thought it worked perfectly with the colour scheme of the bowl. And then I just added some UV resin to the spoon and the resin in the bowl, and then hit it with the UV torch just to set it in place. It was feeling a little bit fragile as well, so I added a little Fruit Loop behind it just to secure it even further. And then once I was comfortable with that, it was just time to go to town with all these little Fruit Loops and UV resin and decorate this bowl. And once that was all done, I finished it off with a very thin layer of epoxy resin over the top of this entire thing. And then again, put that to one side to let it set. And I could obviously keep it this way and that be it, because it still looks quite fun and it looks quite cool, but it also just looks very sparse. So I do want to add some more cereal parts to this. You might have noticed as well that the lighting's changed. It's because I left my overhead lights on. I forgot. And it makes the video look shitty. So if the first part of this video looked shitty, it's my own fault because I'm an idiot. I feel like I look proper rough today anyway. You know when you're like wrestling with yourself, trying to make yourself look nice, and you're just like, ugh. That's what my morning's been like. I've just been looking in the mirror being like, ugh. I've had an exhausting week at work.
Take me with you.
But cereal's gonna make up for it. So a little lesson I learned when I was doing these first steps was when I was adding the UV resin, you can actually, when you get up very close, you can kind of see the transparent UV resin, even when it's transparent. So before I start adding more little things to this, I want to try and colour some UV resin with some white alcohol ink, just so I don't make that same mistake again. I'm just gonna shove it all in here. I think this will work fine. If it doesn't work, then you know not to do this. Then add lots of alcohol ink. Okay, I think that's perfect. And I want to add it back into this tub, just so it's easier to apply. Don't spill. Just give it a little shake, just to make sure it's all properly mixed up. Okay, now we can start attaching some more cereal bits to this. Also, you won't be able to see the state of this table, but because of this video, I've got blobs of resin all over the surface of this table. There's just mounds and mounds of little dollops of resin everywhere. It's a good thing I don't care about my table. So I've got my little Fruit Loops in a bag. And I'm gonna put these on, but I don't want to get too carried away, because I feel like that looks like a bowl of cereal already. I feel like I might ruin it and I might go too far with it, because I do have a habit of going too far with things. But we'll just piss around and have fun. We'll see what happens. And the reason I did this first step is because if you look in there, I like the fact that it's kind of layers and you can see bits of cereal further down, and then we'll have more cereal up at the top. Because I think that's the thing with resin projects. You really want to like build up layers and stuff, especially if you're doing like realistic stuff. It's quite the challenge for us really, because I'm not good at making stuff look super real, like dead fancy. But I was just feeling very confident today. I think it's because I've seen everyone else do it and they all look really good. I don't particularly know what I'm aiming for. Like, I don't know whether I'm going for hyper realistic cereal or whether I'm going for more of like a cartoony vibe. I don't think it's gonna look hyper realistic, but if hyper realism wants to show up, I'll be happy about that. I'll welcome it with open arms. I do enjoy working with UV resin. I think it's a very easy beginner material to work with. So if you've ever wanted to try resin out, I would highly recommend starting with like a UV resin. I think colouring it as well in the little bottle, I think it's worked absolutely fine. Oh, how many do I want to add? I'm trying to think about this person who's eating this cereal and what their cereal bowl would look like. I'm assuming this would be like a kid's cereal bowl or an adult who doesn't have a particularly sophisticated palate.
I'm eating my husband.
Okay, and I want to also add some like white resin around here, so it looks like they've got some milk on the spoon. I don't think that looks like milk on the spoon. It looks like something a little naughtier, but we won't get into that.
Is that a hair gel?
If you know, you know, and if you don't, then good for you. Okay, I think I might have added enough cereal. I don't think I want to add too much. Okay, so I just want to mix some more UV resin with some white alcoholing. And just add another layer of resin over the top of this bowl, just to kind of seal in some of the edges and stuff, make it look a bit more like milk. I'm just gonna add a few more just in here, because it's too empty. Okay, I think I'm finally happy with that arrangement. And I'm gonna get my big boy out and put it under this big UV lamp. I'm just gonna leave that for about 5 minutes, just to make sure everything's fully set. Okay, I think that's finally done. We'll get this off. Oh, it looks so cool. Oh, what? And there we go. There's a fruity, loopy kind of kid cereal bowl with all the cereal inside of it. I think that looks really fun. I think what really sells this is the kind of spoon and the action of it. It feels very much, I don't know, very animated. Definitely not hyper realistic. It's a cartoony looking cereal, but I've got some more cereals coming up, and the next one might look more hyper realistic. It's not going to, but I kind of like my cartoony vibe. Okay, so for this second resin cereal project, I decided I would go for this lovely red bowl this time, and I did exactly the same steps I did before. Aquacast first, let it set, layer of epoxy resin, let it set, and for the cereal component of this one, I decided I wanted more of like a honey loop kind of breakfast cereal. So I did exactly the same thing I did last time, but with a very deep orange saturated colour of epoxy resin, and just put them to one side and let them set. And I thought honey loops wasn't enough sugar for this individual person. I thought they would like chocolate. So I bought this little chocolate chip mold, which by the way is so tiny and so small it was ridiculous. But I put my fears of tiny things behind this and decided to add some brown epoxy resin to this mold. And of course put that to one side to let it set. It was now time to get them out the molds. And the orange hoops look pretty much how I thought they were going to look like. They look like orange little circles. But the chocolate chips worked way better than I thought, and they actually look like real chocolate chips. You would have no idea they were resin if you actually saw them in a shop or something. Now for the spoon component of this bowl, I thought this person would really enjoy eating their cereal with like a pink floral spoon. So I did the exact same process again, secured it into the bowl with UV resin, and then also added my chocolate chips and my cereal again with UV resin, and finally topped that off with a layer of white epoxy resin. Okay, and I've got my little bowl here, and for some reason with this one, I don't know why, I just left it very sparse. Like there's not actually a lot happening in there, so I'm definitely going to have to add way more stuff to it. And you can see it more clearly on this bowl as well, what I was talking about before. Like if you look at that spoon, you can see on there, that's where the UV resin was, the clear UV resin, and it ruins the illusion. That's why I'm dyeing it white. Because that's the thing with stuff like this, it's all about like tricking the mind, isn't it? Right, I'm going to have to pile a shitload of stuff onto this because it's just so empty. I still can't get over how good these little chocolate chips look. I was expecting them not to work, but they worked so well. And also, I know all these cereals have this kind of little hoop design. I was actually looking at other molds on Etsy to buy, and they had some amazing ones. They had like cornflakes and Weetabix and all sorts of stuff, but they were so expensive. Like if I wanted to make what I actually wanted to make with these molds, I would have easily spent well over 100 quid just on silicone molds. And I was like, I can't justify it. Not for molds that I'm probably only ever going to use like once in my life. I can't imagine I'm going to have a high demand demand for various cereal molds. But I did have other plans for this, and I had way more ambitious ideas, but I just couldn't afford it.
Help me, I'm poor.
I think even if I could afford it too, I don't think I'd be prepared to spend over £100 on some molds that I'm only ever going to use once. So that's why we're getting Cheerios, Fruit Loops, and any other kind of loopy cereal you can think of. You'll just have to use your imagination.
Snap out of it!
Okay, I think that looks way more interesting, and there's a lot more going on, which is exactly what I like. And now we'll top it with some UV resin. Okay, I don't think I'm going to add anything else to that one, and we're just going to get that set. I actually think I quite like that one. Alright, time to get tanned. You're so lucky, because I need a tan. I'm so pasty at the minute.
I'm so pale.
Right, we'll check back in about 5 minutes and see what this one's looking like. Okay, so I think that one should be fully done now. So there we have it, honey and chocolate. Oh, delicious. I actually think this one looks quite good. I feel like this one looks a lot more like cereal than the last one. I feel like we're getting somewhere. It's definitely not hyper-realistic. It's still quite cartoony. Oh, it hasn't set. Oh, wait, it needs longer. Where did that come from? Just need to set this a bit longer. Where did that resin poke out of? I'm glad I didn't spill that everywhere. I'm sure that was fully set. Maybe it's just the top layer's set. It might need a lot longer. Okay, I think that's finally done. It should be. It's been in there ages. So there we have it. I think this one does look really good. Oh, it's still leaking everywhere. Where's this resin coming from? What's happened? Look at that. Where are you coming from? This one might need longer in the UV chamber because it just seems to be leaking from underneath, which I didn't think was a thing. But you get the idea. It's just this one, the milk's gone off, so don't eat this one. Is there a hair in it? I don't know. I'll fix this one later, but it looks really nice. Just trust us. Okay, so for our final cereal project, I thought we would use this very nice yellow bowl. I think this will look quite cool. And again, I just did the same steps. Aquacast, let it set. Epoxy resin, let it set. But for this cereal, I thought we would take a break from the sugar and we'd have a little bit of fibre. So I tried to make more of like an oaty, wheaty, coloured kind of cereal. And obviously put that to one side to let it sit. And after taking them out of the mould, I think they look pretty cool. They look very beige, very bland, full of fibre, very healthy. And this time I thought I would double the fibre and add some fruit to this cereal because people have fruit in their cereal for some weird reason.
Gross.
So I got these moulds in various fruit shapes. You've got some berries, some pineapples, strawberry and orange slices. And just filled them up with epoxy resin. And now it was just time to take them out of the mould. And I think they look alright, but I think these would have benefited from being more transparent. I think they're far too opaque to be fruit. And I also didn't realise this mould was the strawberry mould, and I've made some purple strawberries, which I don't think exist, but that's fine. But fear not, because off camera, I actually did another selection of fruits, this time in transparent colours. And I think I'll just use a combination of both. I think they both look quite cool. And since this is a boring, fruity, fibre kind of cereal, I thought the person who was eating this would have a very boring spoon. So I just went for this very beige, plain, normal spoon. And did the same thing as before, secured it into the bowl with UV resin, and added some cereals and fruits, again with UV resin, into this bowl. And finally topped it off with a layer of epoxy resin, and let that set. So to be fair, I think this one's looking pretty good as it is. I think that looks quite nice, but I do want to add a few more little bits to it. Can't go wrong with more decorations. To be fair, I haven't even finished this one yet, and I think this one's going to be my favourite. You know when you just know something's going to look really good. I don't feel like I need to add too much to this. It's already got like a lot of stuff in. I'm trying to squeeze stuff into it, but I don't know, there's not a lot of space to put anything. Maybe that's a sign to stop. Okay, I think I might be pleased with that arrangement. I don't think I want to add anything else. Still got a bag full of decorations, but I'm going to resist. I've been so good today, I've proper resisted everything. The urge to just chuck everything in is unreal. I'm fighting it. I'm fighting my inner demons. Okay, and this time I'm just going to add a very thin layer of resin instead of going really crazy like I did last time. I think I'm happy with that. Okay, so let's get you set, and hopefully I don't have the same problem I did last time. Okay, I definitely think this one's fully set. It better be. Yeah, definitely. It's 100% set. There can't be any leakage with this. And there we go. A bowl full of very fibrous, fruity, healthy cereal. Delicious. I actually think this one's the best one. I really like it. It looks so good. So I think that just about does it for today's video of making fake resin cereal. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And let me know down in the comments, are you team Fruit Loops? Do you prefer the sugary, fruity kind of cereal that I made? Are you team honey and chocolate? Is that that your preferred option? Or are you a sophisticated fruit and fibre kind of person? To be fair, I think all three of them have quite the charm, and I think they look really interesting. I'm obviously not going to fool anyone. You're not going to see this sitting on a table and think, oh, breakfast. Well, someone might. A really stupid person might. But anyone with a brain cell wouldn't. But considering I'm not good at stuff like this, I think I've done an alright job. And a big thank you to King Murray for becoming an exclusive VIO. You very important orange you. And I'll see you next week for a brand new video. I'm actually quite hungry now. I don't think it's got anything to do with cereal. I feel like I'm hungry all the time. I'm sure I've got a tapeworm or something. Stop eating my food, I want it.